I finally broke down and got something I've been wanting for years and years and years, and that is a VR headset. I got an Oculus 2
Oh, awesome.
in November, which was strange to me because I'm not an early adopter by any means, and I love it. Everything I loved about the point and click adventures puzzle games, I can now do in first person, which is just huge. And there's definitely a lot of puzzle games that are taking full advantage of you being in first person VR to think about puzzles, and I really am into that.
What are some of your top picks for if somebody was to get an Oculus 2 right now? What's like your top five or top 10 picks that you would recommend?
So to start off, I don't think a Quest is right for everybody. So definitely, if you are the type of person who's built your own computer, a Quest may not be a good fit for you. You might want like something like a Rift. Um, and if you've never tried VR before, I would definitely suggest trying a VR headset out before committing to an Oculus, just because it's an expensive toy.
Yeah.
And a lot of these games are shorter and more expensive than what you would expect on like the Switch or Steam Marketplace.
Hmm.
But those caveats aside, I think a really good game is I Expect You to Die. It's a James Bond-esque escape room um, that you're in first person and everything you're doing is essentially either in arm's length to complete the puzzles to escape the room and to get around the problem of mobility in this game. They just gave you telekinesis, which is, hilarious, but it works out really well. Why this game, I'm going to say first, is it's really good to play like individually. You can solidly entertain yourself. But the other thing about it is that because this Oculus is designed with sociability in mind, it's super easy to stream. So we've had a couple of parties where we've sat someone down in a stool, put the Oculus on their head, and then everyone in the room is solving these escape rooms together. So
Yeah,
that has been a really fun experience.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Uh,
I had a lot of. I've only had one VR experience, or two really, but one was whatever the PSVR. I forget exactly what the game is. The name of the game is really like a showcase where you're in a place and you have all the guns and knives and you're doing things. But like a really good party environment was Keep Talking and No One Explodes.
that one's
Hmm.
good.
That is such a great party experience and something that you could. I mean, I know there's a version on the Switch, which also kind of works out well because they're the only person who can see the screen and like manipulate it. But like that VR experience of like the person is sitting there and they're freaking out. They're just like, we the title of the game, this, and like people are arguing over like what we should do, and you can just see this person is like, someone give me something, like someone tell me something, and you're like, the blue wire, and we're all dead. Okay, cool guys.
Yeah, definitely. If you end up with a VR headset, Keep Talking, No One Explodes. I totally echo everything Pipe just said. It is fantastic to play. Some ones that like I'll also highlight that may not get as much attention, and I probably won't go through all 10 because honestly I haven't played 10 games on the VR headset. Is Shadow Point.
Hmm.
Shadow Point is a first person puzzler. It has a lot of like Monument Valley types of vibes, where the actual mechanics of the game is creating shadows, and each level or section of the game will introduce a new mechanic that will either keep you from creating the correct shadows or make it different in some kind of way. But there's this overall sort of plot going on which really ties the puzzles together, and so it just feels good to play. A lot of people would call it a cheap VR because there's not that many interactable items. It's really you're walking around and have only like 2 or 3 items you can touch at a time. But for the type of gameplay it is, I think it works out really well, and I had like a good time with it. But that is a first person kind of puzzler. I have recently completed a game called Down the Rabbit Hole, which is a third person, not really a platform, but third person RPG in VR. And I know what you're wondering. Well, how does that work? So you have a teeny tiny person, and she appears like at your eye level, and you can move her around in this isometric space. And then you go into rooms, and you're following her, picking up items, solving a couple of puzzles. But what's really cool is that this little character who's reminiscent of Alice in Wonderland, going through a Alice in Wonderland type world, as she keeps going through rooms, at one point I happened to look up and I realized I was down a hole, that as these rooms were created by this little person, I was spiraling deeper and deeper down. And so that was another really, really cool way to like use VR to put me into a space that, conventional games just couldn't.
Hmm. So now you're talking about like looking up and seeing that you were down the hole makes me like want to ask the question of, uh, I mean, I feel like one of the things that comes up often, people talk about VR is, like motion sickness, like being in the headset for a while, they don't feel too well, they might get headaches, they might get sweats, things like that. You literally just explaining, looked up and saw you were down the hole. My head started to get a little dizzy. What do you have any tips about that? Is that something that you suffer from, or like you suffered from when you first started?
Yeah, so and this is probably something I should mention back with like my history with video games. I have severe motion sickness. There are a lot of games that I just cannot play. So any game that you have to look and move with separate controls is going to make me sick. That's why I think I connected so strongly with Zelda, is because the ZL targeting system for combat was a combat system that I could play with. Games like Halo, I got Halo, and I was so excited because all my buddies are playing Halo, and I just couldn't. Like I'm like
Sure.
on the floor. So yeah, if you do have motion sickness, I would say definitely try out like a friend's VR headset before committing to getting one, because it's going to hit you differently. The games that I pick in the VR store have this icon on them called Comfort. Comfort tends to mean that you can move by teleporting, and that makes a really big difference. I do not do well with games where you have to like tilt your head to walk and move, because it's just wacky. There is also something, and I know it's happening, but I can't describe the actual math frame rate thing that happens here. But there is definitely a difference in games where movement will give me motion sickness versus it won't. It's something with the frame rate, something with the relative speed, I think. Well, one feels good and the other doesn't. And some games have that and some games don't. So that's kind of, definitely something to keep in mind. Look for comfort, but know that even if you have comfort, sometimes even teleportation like doesn't feel good. Like the Star Wars Vader Immortal series. I really enjoy those, but it's a good thing the chapters are so short, because teleporting in that game just makes me woozy.